present today for the unveiling of Dennis and Colleen's new plaque to this centre. Warm welcomes also include our Maitland rep, William Marshall, I think you're William down the back, Maitland's Mercury, Michael Hartshaw, Jess from the council as well, the senior and Little Athletics Life members, which we have all three here today, which we're very, very happy about, John Humphreys, Graham Harris and Joyce Gilmore, and other members of the Athletics Club, which are here, that were on the club, Burgesses and other family members, Humphreys, it's lovely, and not at least our family and friends of Dennis and Colleen Soper, which I'm one of. So the story of this plaque goes a little bit like this. So the original plaque was erected and dedicated on the newly built canteen, change rooms and amenities block in March 1999, which was then situated roughly at where the 100-metre mark starts now. And that's only my guess, I'm pretty sure that'd be about where it is. It was dedicated then to Colleen and Dennis in appreciation of the 50 plus years of service to Maitland Senior and Little Athletics Club. Around about 4 to 5 years ago, that building was demolished to make way for the construction of this excellent new centre. We as a family, with the support of Graham Harris, who was the president of the Maitland Athletics Club in 1999, pursued the rededication of this new plaque to the building when this was all completed. Unfortunately, we hit many hiccups on this journey, including the passing of Colleen in 2022 and COVID. Recently though, have received tremendous support from William, who in his role at the council manages and includes the facilitating of our local sporting venues. Our family have been allowed to purchase and have this plaque rededicated and unveiled this evening. Before I ask Dennis and Colleen's children, Glenn and Debbie, to unveil a new plaque behind me, I'd like to call on Graham Harris and followed by anyone else who would like to say a few words in relation to Colleen and Dennis's outstanding contributions to the Athletics Club. Okay.
Thanks, Pat. I was just talking to Glenn and I was saying it's almost to the day 50 years since I started running down at the club, had the first run down there, and that's when I first got to meet Colleen and Dennis, and that was just unreal. I mean, I didn't actually join the club for another 2 years because I was in boarding school in Sydney, but you could already tell they were at the heart and soul of the club then, and that was back in '75. And when the event did move up, I remember it was a weekend, like I got home on a Friday night and there was a carnival on Sunday, and Colleen just bent over backwards to get the registration done that week, that Saturday morning, and get me a uniform. And that's, you know, the commitment they had. I mean, Pat hinted at, you know, the jobs they did, you know, Dennis looking after the field, and that's behind the scenes. Everyone knew Dennis as the announcer. In those days, the announcer used to coordinate, you know, the under-6s that you have to be at long jump, the under-7 girls would be at high jump, and things like that. And he'd have his sheet and keep it all there. And Colleen, of course, would be over at long jump. I think she'd still be there if we could. It's been a great journey being friends with them. The track itself, the old grass track, I mean, when I first started running here, you remember the old field, you had number 2 out there and the main track here, and the road down the middle, and the main straight was actually parallel to the road. It was in the middle of the field. And Dennis would be there, the car would be near the finish line because he'd have to use his car battery to power the end because there was no electricity down there. So that was unreal. And then the field got rotated 180 degrees, so the finish line was just over here, and there was the new stand put up. Eventually I think it got condemned, but in those days it was unreal. Yeah, they had a stand, and then you had a recorder's desk put in so the recorder could sit there and with a cover over it, and then you had a judge's stand, and that was the development over the years. I mean, Dennis, the work he did on the field, the mowing of it, you never get to see that. The marking of the field, I mean, I did it for a couple of years. It's one that I've had the black stuff still in my hands. That was happening for years. I was saying to Trees, I mean, Dennis and Colleen were involved in the club. I mean, Debbie and Glenn stopped athletics, and it must have been at least 20 years, maybe 25 years before grandchildren were available to them, and they never missed. They were still there in those years with only no connection, no family connection, just a passion to get down there and do the athletics. So it's been, great knowing them. It's really good to see the history and remember the people where the club came from, who kept the club running over those years. So I really appreciate the chance to have something to say. So if anyone else would like to have something to say in remembrance.
John? Thanks, Graham.
I think some of the biggest memories, and I'm sure Luke, my brother, shares them as well, is Pop used to pick us up from school about years 8, 9, 10 across the road to St. Peter's, and he'd say, "Oh, just walk down to Smythe. I'm just there finishing up a couple of jobs." "Yeah, no worries, Pop." So we toddle through the back gates, Odd Street, down to here, and we get there, and so you've done a little bit, Pop, not a huge amount, you've done a bit. And he said, "Oh, look, got sidetracked, but do you mind just, as Graham's alluded to, doing some marking for me?" So if it wasn't marking, it was mowing. And honestly, the amount of times that I would mow over his freshly done lines, and it wasn't words Pop was good for, it was a couple of, eyebrow raisers. And yeah, it sort of showed enough that you've made a mistake there, mate, but takeover can still see the lines. But even just saying about the old grandstand, I still remember when I'd plod along for my 50 metres, 100 metres, and nearly had a heart attack doing the 200, but going up and sitting next to Pop on the grandstand and watching everyone else compete, just really beautiful memories. Colleen in the canteen, and we always used to hope to God there was a couple of pies or sausage rolls at the end of the night that we could sneak home with. But yeah, really cherished and beautiful memories that we've got here of the Maitland Athletics track, and yeah, it's so good to see the plaque back in its rightful home. So thank you.
I'll jump in, sorry. Yeah, just following on from what Joel said, Pop was so funny with his lines, back in those days you'd finish year 10 early, so I had about a 10-week summer, and every Tuesday and Thursday he'd pick me up to come and help him. And by the end of those 10 weeks I was really no better with the line, so he only let me work on field 2, which back then was just, your shot put and whatever. So he didn't trust me all that much, but the memories of Pop, dressing up in the suit at this time of year, it was just, incredible, and it just made every kid's Christmas. And we're all families back then. We were all families. We'd come here together, and everyone had a couple of children, and like Joel alluded to, you'd see people were just drawn to Pop particularly, and after their events you'd see 10, 15 kids just sitting around the microphone every Friday night. Colleen over at the sand pit, and I remember, we'd help us stack up the new canteen. So there was the old canteen on top of the hill, and then they moved it down. And we some afternoon she packed a little red car full of the Coke cans and that kind of thing, and we'd come down to the canteen, and just about every weekend, every weekday that we went, Colleen would set off the alarm. She'd somehow find a way to do it, and we'd be on the phone to John or Graham or someone. We sort this alarm out, and more often than not, someone like Steve Little and some people would have to come down and reset the alarm. It was just Colleen. It was just brilliant. But then the memory of that hill particularly, and just looking up, and as a kid it just seemed like the biggest adventure ever. And if you weren't running or in an event on the field or the track, you'd be rolling down those hills, and they were just the best. But this place meant so much to them, and lots of other Maitland bits and pieces, as you know, as well. But looking forward to this unveiling, and thank you all for coming.
Thanks for the invite. Very much appreciated. It really is, because Dennis and Colleen were, as has already been said by a few here, and Graham and so forth, they were just fantastic people for the athletic club. When Nolan and I came along, it was Dennis, Colleen and Paul Critchley pretty well that handled, and Joyce and Johnny were there too, and it was just so good. They led you through everything. They were so special. Dennis on his microphone, I can still remember sitting up there with him too. And Colleen on a favourite place over at the sand pit. She loved it over there. She had that running absolutely perfect every Friday night. And they were just truly special people. We went around to their place a few times after athletics and had a cup of tea and a little drink and so forth. But no, it was just so good. And this plaque, I think, is a fitting reminder for both of them and the work that they've put into Maitland Athletic Club. And I'm sure this place is this is just so fantastic from what we had and what we ran on prior to this going in. But yeah, we're so lucky to have this beautiful facility here, and with Dennis and Colleen's name up there representing it. Thanks.
Thank you. For those who don't know, John and Paul Critchley and John Gilmore gave valuable time out of their heart and soul on a Thursday night to do a raffle at the Georgian Dragon. Heart and soul. And you know, they'd carry these little brown things around with them too. And then Paul Critchley, who was such a good trainer, and John similar, didn't drink a lot, but they always were happy, weren't we, to go out there to see the raffles. So I'll never forget the times and the amount of money you must have raised at that pub. And he's never once whinged. I've always thought to John and to John that are here representing that, took it on the heart. Is there anyone else wants to say? Annette's here, isn't that lovely? So I welcomed earlier Annette. I know Wester couldn't be here, and that's great to have someone representing the present club. It's magnificent actually, so thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything before we try and pull this wall down? Okay, well, as you can see, there was blowing about a 50-kilometre wind here